next up is the Senior Vice President of International Trade and Business Development for Enterprise Florida, and my friend, Manny Mencia. In 2009, Mr. Mencia was the recipient of the President's E-Star Award for Export Promotion Excellence, which is the nation's highest trade development honor. He currently serves as the president of the State International Development Organization and is an energetic advocate for Florida all over the globe. Please welcome Manny Mencia.
Thank you, Jerry. My goodness, what a great turnout. And thank you, Major Jacobs, for your leadership, for your foresight in including international trade and business as part of this summit today. I've had the privilege of participating on multiple trade missions with a major, and I got to tell you, she's a great advocate for Orlando and for the state of Florida. I work with majors throughout the state, and I can't think of many or any as aggressive and as proactive as Mayor Jacobs is. So thank you very much. And by the way, before I proceed with my presentation, I want to just give you a little hint of something. The mayor's office sent me a little message before, said the mayor wants you to make your presentation a real meaningful cultural experience for the audience. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to fake an accent throughout my presentation. Anyway, Florida and the Orlando region have an enormous stake in international business. While no question tourism is a principal driver of the Florida economy, close second, an extremely important and growing aspect of our economy is international business. About 17% of the Florida economy today depends on international business, and its job impact is enormous. We estimate at Enterprise Florida about 1 million Floridians depend on international business for their livelihood. Now, if you look at indirect impacts, for example, the Business Roundtable in Washington does an estimate that the actual impact of international business on the state of Florida is roughly 2.2 million jobs. If you look at it from that direct-indirect standpoint, you're looking at roughly 1 out of every 4 jobs in the state of Florida. Not only that, understand that international business jobs are higher than average wages type of jobs. International business, from my perspective, for your companies here in Orlando, is good for, obviously, for the employees. It's good for the companies. U.S. Department of Commerce statistics tell us that any company that does international business grows at a rate of about 15% faster than companies who do not. They are also significantly 10 to 15% more profitable. And from my perspective, the most important thing, when companies engage in doing business overseas, they are much likely to eliminate jobs or to fail during periods of domestic downturns. So it's good for the employee, it's good for the company, it's good for the community. What isn't there not to like? Florida is a national leader in international trade and investment. No question about it. We have an estimate 60,000 companies engaged in international business in this state. Not only that, 95% of those companies are small business. We are the national leader in small business participation in international trade. 67% of what Florida exports is done by small and mid-sized companies. Compare that to a national average of something like 33%. Much higher. In fact, we are number one in the nation in that category, as we are in what we call manufacturing export intensity. That's a term by the National Association of Manufacturers. It addresses what percentage of your domestic production is sold overseas, not domestically in the United States. 49% of what Florida produces is consumed overseas, not in the United States. Compare that to a national average of something around 20%. Florida is by far the largest exporter in terms of percentage in the nation. Obviously, we do have a long way to go in terms of becoming, once again, a manufacturing power. And I think we're on the way. I see a lot of good things in the horizon when it comes to manufacturing, but when it comes to international participation, we're doing fantastic. We're doing extremely well. High technology. Again, a national leader. Florida is the third largest exporter of high technology, and the Orlando region plays a very pivotal part in that. In sectors like defense, aerospace, sector like life sciences, sectors like the transportation-related sectors, digital medias, sectors like that. Only Texas and California export more international technology than we do. And by the way, when I say we have 60,000 companies exporting in Florida, only one state has a larger concentration than ours, and that's the state of California. Orlando is an important player in international trade, but you know what? I think we could be doing much better here. I think we gotta keep working at it. One thing that I gotta tell you that is my mantra when it comes to international trade. You can't stand still. Anytime you do, you begin losing. You gotta keep improving your product. You gotta keep working at it. You gotta keep refining the services. You gotta keep ensuring that your international visitors and your international business people have the best possible experience in your community. Orlando ranks today as the third largest metropolitan area exporting in the state of Florida, you know, obviously behind the Miami-Fort Lauderdale region, which is number one, and slightly behind the Tampa region. I think it's not a very difficult challenge to project that Orlando region could certainly rise to number two in the very near future. You have tremendous built-in advantages in this region. Not only a beautiful community, but a community that is known throughout the world, that people want to come from every part of the world to be part of and to experience your attractions. And my experience throughout my career is that tourism begets trade, which begets investment. So you have such a leg up already to take advantage of international opportunities, and you're doing it. International investment into this region is flowing. We have approximately 2,500 international companies, according to federal statistics, that employ over 250,000 employees in the state of Florida. And the fact of the matter is, just look around you and you realize the impact of international investment is much, much higher than that, because federal statistics don't tend to include privately held investment. For example, when a Brazilian citizen comes to Orlando and loves it so much and decides to stay and open a business here, typically that is undercounted. That never shows up in the federal rates, radar screen. To put it in numbers, you are exporting about $3.2 billion. And by the way, Orlando, because of the dynamics of who the region does business with, is very well poised to take advantage of current international trends. Orlando region tends to do more business with Europe, with the Middle East, with Asia, than does, for example, the South Florida region. And if you're looking, I would say any of your economists, any of our trade experts, and by the way, it's very humbling to be up here after Jim Backus, who I've always considered one of the foremost experts in international business, not just in Florida, but anywhere. The perspective is that the areas of the world where trade is going to be expanding in the short term, at least, are very favorable to the Orlando region. Our exports have slowed down. They slowed down in 2013. They actually declined slightly in 2014, and this was mostly due because of the Latin American economic slowdown. the Latin American region, because of the decline in demand, in world demand for commodities, slowed significantly after what was truly a golden decade between 2000 and 2010, 2011. Forecast is, because Latin America is extremely important for Florida, you will begin to see a turnaround in 2016. But regional growth is this year, in 2014, I think, once the, everything is tabulated, it'll be somewhere around 1.5%. World Bank and United Nations statistics may reflect a little bit more than that. Well, they tend to overcalculate performance in the developing world. So don't believe it. It's been slow. Now, understand this. It's not an across-the-board slowdown. There's a very wide divergence between the performance of what I call the connected nations of the hemisphere. The Pacific Tigers, the Chiles, the Perus, the Colombias, the Panamas, Mexico, the nations that have been doing it right, opening their economies to foreign competition, to foreign investment, to international trade, encouraging domestic private sector initiative. Those economies will probably wind up averaging somewhere around 4% growth this year. But of course, look at some of the larger nations in the hemisphere, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, nations that have pursued more, populist statist type policies, controlled imports, in many ways discourage foreign investment. Those not connected nations, shall we say, have underperformed the last few years and will probably continue to do so even 2016 and possibly even beyond. So the way I see it, the great opportunities in the years to come are going to be in the developing nations in Asia, Middle East, Africa, all regions with tremendous potential for the state of Florida. And as Mr. Backus alluded, those two agreements, the agreement essentially, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, basically our trade deal with the European Union, tremendous potential for Florida. That agreement will create additional billions of dollars of jobs and investment in the state of Florida. Billions of dollars in additional trade, thousands of new jobs. Likewise, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Remember, other things are happening that will propel Florida, I believe, to a much higher profile in terms of its business relationship with Asia. And I'm talking about, one, the expansion of the Panama Canal. Hey, you may be in the center of the state of Florida, but that canal expansion, when those Super Post-Panamax container ships begin to come through the Panama Canal, it'll impact you. It will put additional money in our pockets. It will bring additional business from the Asian region into our state. And whatever state captures those boxes, those containers that are going to be coming through the Panama Canal to the eastern seaboard and the southeast, will be the winner of another competition, and that's a competition for foreign direct investment, because logistics, distribution, like manufacturing, will follow those operations. You will see a much higher concentration of Asian companies doing business than ever before. The second trend, there is a new era of commercial aircrafts out there. These commercial aircrafts, passenger aircrafts, have the potential now to fly direct from places where they were not able to do so before. And I'm talking about countries in Asia, the Middle East. You will be getting, we already, South Florida already got a direct flight from the Middle East. I predict Orlando will be getting flights, additional flights from the Middle East, from Asia, from other parts of the world. We will be getting flights from Africa coming into our state. The whole, wherever it is that they fly, Orlando, Miami, wherever, Florida and Central Florida will benefit from that also. So I see a future of tremendous opportunity for Florida. Again, I do think we have work to do. Particularly, we have work to do on the export diversification side of the house. We need to find a way of beginning to balance out our trade more effectively than we do today. I've always said the good news for Florida is that we're the dominant trade partner of Latin America. 65% of our trade is with the nations of Latin America. The bad news is that we're over-dependent on Latin America. So our ability to expand trade with Asia, our ability to expand trade with the Middle East, Africa, a continent that sits today on the largest concentration of mineral wealth in the world. And I submit that no state is better positioned geographically in terms of the composition of our trading community that has cut its teeth doing business in the developing world than the state of Florida. Africa has enormous potential for us. I am not going to do the commercial because I'm out of time, but Enterprise Florida works very closely with the Orlando EDC, works closely with all your other trade organizations here in Central Florida, Jerry at the DC Entrepreneurial Center with the World Trade Center here, to provide a platform for Florida companies to do business around the world. I invite you to contact us. As you know, Enterprise Florida is headquartered here in Orlando, and find out what we can do for you. Particularly if you're a manufacturer or high-tech company, ask us about the grants program, the market entry grants program that we have available to help you start doing business in countries that you're not doing business before. Major, thank you so much for including me. Thank you for inviting Enterprise Florida, and thank all of you for your hospitality and for your attention today. Thanks.
How do you not get excited listening to Mr. Mencia?